Republic leads the mega coverage on the National Herald scam. Right from day one, we've had multiple exposes raising some very uncomfortable questions for Rahul Gandhi as well as Sonia Gandhi. Questions that the Gandhi family have chosen to ignore. Through the day, we've posed multiple questions to them. You've seen our senior executive editor, Abhishek Kapoor, raising that question to former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram. And not just that, also our executive editor, Aishwarya Kapoor, raising that question with Rahul Gandhi himself. In response, has been an attempt by the Congress party to deflect this entire issue, an issue which has only put the Congress party in the dock. We'll tell you why the Congress party has now been put in the dock. In this three-part breakings that we are getting you are full details of the investigation that has been carried out so far. And why is it that the Congress party is so very nervous? That's the big question. But let's take a look at the first big breaking news that's now coming in. The attempt that has been made by the Gandhis to deflect the blame or shift the blame on Motilal Vora. We're now getting details of why it has not cut the ice with the enforcement directorate. Two important points that emerges the moment the Gandhis essentially passed the buck to Motilal Vora. Let me put this into perspective. The Gandhis essentially say that Motilal Vora had taken the decision. The financial decisions were actually taken by Motilal Vora. The counter here is that if Motilal Vora was the sole signatory, then there would be certain documents in which Motilal Vora had basically signed, or for that matter, a board would have been convened in which a decision would have been taken that financial matters would have essentially been decided by Motilal Vora. On both the counts, the Gandhis have failed miserably, and this is how I'm given to understand that they have failed miserably. One, they have not furnished a single document which shows that Motilal Vora was the one who had taken the decisions as far as financial matters are concerned. Second, there are no minutes of the meeting or for that matter any board meeting that has taken place in which the decision was taken that Motilal Vora would be taking the decision. Let's not forget, as far as Young India is concerned, there are only two shareholders, that is Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi. So where does this entire issue leave us at this point in time? It leaves us to the point that not a single decision that was actually taken was without the consent of the Gandhis. It turns out that this has been an attempt only because they know that there is no way that the enforcement directorate can perhaps check this with Motilal Vora because he's no longer alive. But this has only been the biggest blunder that the Gandhis have made in the National Herald scam, because what has happened right now is that the enforcement directorate has essentially put the onus on the Gandhis, that the burden of proof lies with the Gandhis to prove the fact that it was Motilal Vora who had taken the decisions. Let me also bring in my colleagues who are joining us on this broadcast to get us more details. I'm given to understand Aishwarya would be joining us from the newsroom right now, breaking down details of this entire investigation, details that has now been accessed by Republic TV. Let me just take you through some more details that are emerging right now. One being that as far as Motilal Vora is concerned, who has taken the call, who has taken the decision? If Aishwarya has joined us, can I take this question with Aishwarya or Abhishek, who's joining us on this broadcast? Aishwarya, if you can hear me. I'm told that he hasn't joined us as yet, but let me just stick to some of the news that we are getting in right now with regards to, let's stick to the first breaking news that's coming in. The first breaking news that's coming in, that not a single document has been provided by the Gandhis to basically prove the fact that it was Motilal Vora who has taken the decision. That's the big breaking news that's emerging at this point in time. And also, secondly, with regards to the signatories and the board meetings, I'm told that they have not even given any details of the minutes of the meeting. Aishwarya, you've been tracking the story very closely. A three-part breaking that we are getting for all our viewers right now. The first part is with regards to Motilal Vora. I'm told by my sources within the enforcement directorate that one, no document has been provided in which they can prove the fact that the decision was taken that Motilal Vora is the ultimate person when it comes to financial decisions. Secondly, if at all that decision was taken that all financial matters is going to be decided by the treasurer, that is Motilal Vora, then it would have been done in a board meeting. But there were no minutes of the meeting that was furnished by the Gandhis. So this entire attempt to deflect has only fallen flat on their face.
Well, absolutely, Shravan, and all these technicalities which you are just bringing in, it was very visible today when these so-called protests on GST, Congress tried to do it, because the real reason is this. Real reason is that now for the first time they have understood that the agencies are catching up. Because till now, they had this feel, Shravan, that the Enforcement Directorate cannot, that was the feel within the Congress party, that you cannot have anyone with the last name Gandhi. They were just taken aback that how can the ED, and I repeat, how can the Enforcement Directorate basically seize or seal private properties of Rahul and Sonia Gandhi? So that is how they have been completely taken aback. A flutter within the Congress party is only and only why, because at the end of the day, they are able to sense the agencies are reaching very close to corrupt. And if Sonia and Rahul are corrupt, it is for the agency to decide. Today, they were planning to do these protests. By the way, as we speak, live visuals are also coming in from Chandigarh, because Congress is trying to create this whole scene that they are doing these protests against GST, against price rise, when the reality is they are only and only doing protests to protect, as in Salman Khurshid's words, protect my leader. And they want to protect the corrupt. Does the Congress party want to protect the corrupt? Because the enforcement agencies and then the documents which you've just received, Shravan, which you have now, show it very clearly that nothing, and I say nothing, is in order. And when Abhishek asked that question to the former finance and the home minister, who knows a little bit more than Rahul Gandhi, at least that is my perception, he knows that the ED, the former home and the finance minister, P. Chidambaram, he exactly knows how the ED function. Without evidence, ED would not have acted this way. He is aware. And that's why, Shravan, it was very visible on their faces. It's fake protest. Half of these leaders were already sitting in the bus, waiting for them to be taken away. And the other half was just smiling while Rahul Gandhi was just too busy doing social networking sites, scrolling through. Because at the end of the day, they have no answer. How can 50 lakh becomes 2,000 crore? Why aren't they giving a clarification on the scam, on the corruption, by putting on the complete blame on late Motilal Vora? Can they escape? No, they can't. Because now, Shravan, as you are getting those documents also, and we are also being told by our sources very clearly that the Enforcement Directorate now has plethora of evidence, and I repeat, plethora of evidence. So now when you have a plethora of evidence, in that case, the scene becomes very, very difficult for the Congress party. The Congress party, it is becoming untenable for them. And with these latest information and the latest breaking news which you are gathering, Shravan, it makes them flutter, because they are just unable to digest that now the agency is reaching to the doorstep of the Gandhis. And that's the problem. The private properties of Sonia and Rahul Gandhi are being seized. That's the problem. That's why you saw these it was a very unwanting protest in the morning. P. Chidambaram did not want to do protest. Jairam Ramesh was already sitting in the bus, busy once again on the phone. When we tried to ask that question to Rahul Gandhi, he was just too busy.
Aishwarya,
Gaurav Gogoi wants to say that this protest was on GST. No.
Aishwarya,
yeah, back to you. Shravan.
Aishwarya, sorry to interrupt you, but what I'll essentially do right now is get into the facts of the case so that all our viewers who are tuning in right now, they basically understand what is the issue all about. Politics aside, there are several questions that have essentially been raised. And let's look at the other big allegation that has been leveled. A leader of the opposition, Mallikarjun Kharge, raised this entire point. We are coming to the second breaking news right now. This is with regards to Mallikarjun Kharge, who was called in for questioning by the Enforcement Directorate. He was inside the Young Indian office in the national capital for about 8 hours. That's how long that he was questioned by the Enforcement Directorate. And the moment he stepped out, he said that, why was I being summoned when the Lok Sabha proceedings are underway? Breaking news now that is basically coming in is with regards to the investigation, that is that as far as Young Indian as a company is concerned, there is only one single employee, and the name of that one single employee is Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge. He is also the CEO of the company. Second, there are only two shareholders of this company, that is Mr. Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi. What has happened right now is that the Enforcement Directorate under the PMLA Act has essentially said that when the searches are basically carried out, the principal officer of the company has to be present. Now that is as per the PMLA Act. Since Mallikarjun Kharge is the single employee of Young Indian, that is the reason why he was asked to be present when the searches were essentially being carried out. That's the latest that is coming in. Just to put this into perspective, going beyond the rhetoric that we are essentially staring at this point in time. On this broadcast, I'm also joined by a senior BJP leader, Mr. Gaurav Bhatia. Mr. Bhatia, thank you very much for speaking to Republic TV. I'm also joined by our executive editor, Aishwarya. Mr. Bhatia, as per our sources, there are two things that has basically emerged. One, with regards to this attempt that was made by the Gandhis to deflect. My sources, Mr. Bhatia, say that not a single document has been furnished by the Gandhis to basically indicate that they had taken the decision to that Motilal Vora would be the man who's going to take all calls as far as financial matters are concerned. Secondly, they have not been able to provide any details with regards to any board meeting that could have taken place in the past, in which they had taken the call that financial matters, all decisions would be taken by Motilal Vora. And the third thing, with regards to Mallikarjun Kharge, it turns out that he is the only employee in Young Indian, only CEO, and there are only two shareholders. But once again, Mr. Bhatia, the allegation leveled against the BJP is that you don't want to talk about other core issues that are plaguing the country at this point in time. And that is the reason why you are perhaps training the guns at the Congress party. Sorry for putting this into perspective. Let's move on to the other big breaking news that's coming in right now. We at Republic TV are now putting out facts of the case, why this issue is now being politicized. Let's take a look at the other big issue that was raised by the Congress party with regards to the fact that where is the money and what is the illegality all about. In this third part of our breaking, we tell you why there is a problem. And the problem is the involvement of shell companies. All this while, we've already heard the name of one company. That company goes by the name of Dotex. The Congress party is again and again saying that, look here, the Dotex, this company that you're talking about, is now being, in fact, looked after by a prominent industrialist. Enforcement Directorate sources now indicating that that does not matter, because what matters to the agency as far as the probe goes is when Dotex had basically given about 1 crore rupees to Young Indian, who was really controlling the company called Dotex? And was it a shell company? Sources say, yes, it was a shell company. And not just that. Are we really looking at only one shell company? Sources within the agency tell us that not just one, there are multiple shell companies that have basically come under the scanner at this point in time. And what's important to point out here is that they are all connected to Young Indian. That is the reason why just about a few days ago, there were pan-India searches that were carried out at least at 12 locations. And beyond Kolkata, where Dotex was actually operating from, we are now given to understand that there are smaller cities from where these shell companies were operating and have some connection or the other with Young Indian and AJL. Important to also point out at this stage is the fact that there have been hawala transactions that have taken place, and that is the reason why a company with not a single asset, young Indian, mind you viewers, does not have a single asset. But despite that, it has actually received money. About 1 crore rupees has actually come in from Totex. And now I'm picking up that there has been more such transactions, which the enforcement directorate is essentially indicating that these are suspicious transactions. Of course, it's incumbent on the enforcement directorate to basically gather more evidence to the effect that there have been suspicious transactions. And when they say suspicious, what does this essentially mean? What I'm picking up is that when they say suspicious transaction, they are basically indicating that there have been hawala transactions that have taken place, and hawala transactions basically come under various violations under under FEMA also, and for that matter with regards to money laundering. These are the latest details we are getting in right now. We'll try and go across to our executive editor Aishwarya Kapoor on this broadcast to break it down for all our viewers, because this is the third very important aspect. So we've basically covered 3 very crucial issues as far as the National Herald scam is concerned. One, starting with Motilal Vora, whether at all can they really pass the buck on Motilal Vora. Secondly, with regards to this entire investigation of Totex and shell companies. Joining us on this broadcast